Hi everyone, and welcome to the CBP Education Team's Ask an Expert webinar, revisiting the Strong Interest Inventory Assessment, What's New? We have more than 1,080 people registered today, which is the largest group we've ever had. My name is Karen Gonzalez, and I'm the Associate Marketing Manager here at CBP. I'll be moderating today's webinar, and we'll be introducing our featured speaker, Judy Gruder, in just a moment. But first, I'd like to do a quick walkthrough of the webinar format. Today's webinar will run for approximately 90 minutes. During the presentation, if you have any questions, you're welcome to submit them to me using the question function in the webinar controls. Judy will be pausing twice during the webinar today to answer your questions, and I'll give everyone a chance to pose these questions during their breaks. The two breaks, I mean. 3 representatives from CBP are also in attendance, Janelle Rohr, Jim Larkin, and Jack Powers, and they'll be available to answer questions as well. Judy will be introducing them a little later on. As with all our webinars, today's webinar is being recorded and we'll be sending out a link to the recording in a couple of weeks. Please note that the PowerPoint slides are not available for the Ask an Expert series. Now that I've walked you through the logistics, I'd like to introduce our experts. I'm very excited to welcome Judy Gruder, GS Principal and Trainer. Judy has been a career development program consultant and trainer for more than 35 years, as well as a National Certified Counselor and NCDA Master Career Counselor. She is a recognized authority on the uses of assessments in career counseling and is co-author of a number of publications and reports on the Strong Interest Inventory, such as the iStartStrong report and Myers-Briggs tools. Judy is also the author of the GS MBTI certification program for career counselors and educators and co-author of the GS Strong Interest Inventory certification program. Please join me in welcoming Judy, and now I'd like to turn over the webinar to her. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you, Karen. We're going to talk about my favorite topic today, the Strong Interest Inventory, and we're going to talk about the revision that was released last week. And I'm also going to go over the iStartStrong report that has been out for a few months, but not everyone is aware of it. And I'd like to put the revision of the Strong that we're looking at today in a little bit of historical context for us. One of the things that makes the Strong the standard in career assessments is that, like any serious psychological assessment, it's a constant work in progress. The Strong was actually first developed in the 1920s, and it came from the empirical research of E.K. Strong. At that time, they were testing and defining the personalities of workers in various occupations, which is actually what we're talking about today with the new Strong. New users of the Strong are often surprised that Strong is the name of an actual person. And here he is, right for the 1920s. And the original name was the Strong Vocational Interest blank, the SVIB. And at the time, there were over 400 items on the original Strong, and the items compared respondents with men, only men, in 10 occupations. And over the years, it's been revised frequently. The basic interest scales were added in the 1960s. At that time, the Strong became known as the Strong-Campbell. Many of us remember that. And Holland's REASSEC framework was added in the 1970s, and along with that, the general occupational themes, and then the personal style scales in the 1990s. The last full revision was in 2004, and now we have the updated occupational scales. Now, the empirical norming of these occupational scales, comparing respondents with actual workers, is what sets the Strong apart from other interest assessments. They've always been the heart of the Strong, and their current revision is what we're talking about now. And to put the occupational scales in perspective, on the general occupational themes, I refer to them interchangeably as the general occupational themes, and the GOTS. On the general occupational themes, the basic interest scales, or the BISs, and the personal style scales, the PISs, respondents' answers are compared with those of people in general, what's referred to as a general representative sample of employed adults. Scores on the GOTS, the BISs, and the PISs tell us how much interest respondents have compared to men and women in general. Now, the occupational scales are different. On these scales, respondents' answers are compared with occupational samples. And scores on the occupational scales tell us how similar respondents are to workers who are typical of various occupations. So first we look at how much interest they have, then we look at how similar they are. It is because the norm groups are different that it's really very possible for respondents to come up with GOT and BIS coding that's different from their top occupations. In fact, the predictive validity of the results for a particular respondent rests on the consistency of the reassert coding across all of the scales. Now, the two major changes this year are changes in the occupational scales themselves and the addition of active hyperlinks from report PDFs to ONET. There are also some slight cosmetic improvements in the reports. I'm going to talk about the occupational scales first, and then I'll show you how the links work and what is slightly different about some of the reports from previous revisions. There are now 260 occupational scales, 130 male and 130 female. 46 new scales have been added representing 23 occupations. Again, we always have male and female scales. Some examples: arts entertainment manager, career counselor, university administrator. Career counselors finally on the strong. We've been talking about it for years, and the coding finally settled down enough that we could include it on the include it in the research and on the profile. Now, occupations were targeted for norming based on several sources of best jobs and hot career fields. Most importantly, the occupations on the strong are designed to really serve as a gateway to the whole world of work. So they very often don't have the title that we're calling it this week. We tend to keep them pretty generic so that we can reference all kinds of jobs from the 130 that are on the profile. Obtaining occupational samples is much more challenging now than it has been in the past decades in light of increased personal security protection and all kinds of privacy laws. But as in the past, all members of the occupational samples are satisfied with their work. They have at least 3 years of experience on the job. They're at least 18 years of age. And they do the work in the occupation in a typical way, by the way. We want typical members of occupations. Also, as in the past, the scales were constructed by comparing the respondents of members of an occupation with those of the general sample of employed adults to determine which items differentiate the two groups. And any item that significantly differentiates the questions on the career counselor scale, for instance, let me back up. Any item that differentiates the way career counselors answer questions on the strong and the way people in general answer questions on the strong would then appear on the career counselor scale. Now, in addition to the 46 new scales that were added, 36 scales were updated. Occupations that appeared on the 2004 strong but with revised construction, revised scoring, and in some cases even new coding. 8 scales were revised by supplementing prior samples with new data, and although the scales were not reconstructed, scoring and coding is new. 30 of the 2004 occupational scales were removed, usually because of overlap with new scales or the sample was updated and no data was available to replace it, something that just made it important to remove something that was just not useful anymore. I want to emphasize what many of you have heard me talk about for decades, that the primary value of the occupational scales is not any one job title that appears on a student's list. It is in the overall coding, the pattern of respondents' top occupations. Now, because these scales are empirically developed, they can't be faked. So when respondents come up with lots of high occupations in a certain theme code, that really means something. And when the code is consistent with the general occupational theme and basic interest scale codes, it says something huge. I'm going to show you here. Here we have some general occupational themes from a report, basic interest scales, and top 10 occupations. Now, not only does this client like things that are associated with the artistic and social themes, for instance, like writing and mass communication and teaching and education, but she's also similar to satisfied workers in related occupations. It's like a huge bingo. We can see that this student describes herself as creative and helpful, has specific interests in career fields that are creative and helpful, and will most likely be attracted to environments where creative and helpful people work. This is the perfect profile. Doesn't happen all the time. This is particularly important when we consider how some of the occupational scales codes have changed with the new research. I like to think of the OSSes as a snapshot of the workplace from decade to decade. It's kind of interesting to trace the OSS coding all the way back. One of my favorites was when dentist went from IR to IS. I talk to my dentist about that all the time. I don't think his code changed from IR to IS. He's still one of those get in your mouth and do it with your hands people. And here are a few of the interesting occupational scales code changes in 2012. Just a few. The bottom line is that not very many primary reassec motivators, the first letters in the code, changed. And when they did, the theme that used to be first is now second. Some of the codes have expanded beyond single letters. That could add some interesting nuances to interpretations as well. You can see just in these three occupational titles how things have shifted slightly and how men and women are still slightly different. And we can spend the next 5 years discussing why attorneys still code out with artistic as their primary motivator. The main purpose of the occupational scales is to launch the exploration of many careers. They essentially serve as a gateway to the entire world of work. The new Strong profile makes it very easy by linking right from the top 10 occupations to the Occupational Information Network, ONET, that was developed by the Employment and Training Administration of the U.S. Department of Labor. It's as easy as clicking on the link. I'll show you. I'll try to demonstrate how this works. Clicking on Public Relations Director, and ONET Public Relations Director comes right up. Those of you who have used ONET before know that you can scroll through the description for lots of additional information. I'm going to demonstrate with another full report so you can see how we can go back and forth between the links from the profile to ONET and even go deeper into state projections and things like that. I'm going to walk through an entire Strong with various reports in just a minute so you can see how each one works, how we use the links, and how the occupations have changed. I want to pause first. And Karen, have any questions come in yet about what we've talked about? I know we've just covered a little bit about what's new.
Yeah, and we actually have just a couple of questions that have come in regarding a little bit of confusion on the newness of this. But we have Diane that asks, I have a set of old inventories. When I send them in for scoring, what will my clients receive? How will the report be different in light of these changes?
My understanding, and Jack and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that if you have a report rescored, you will get the new occupational scales. On Skills 1, I'm going to show you in a minute, it shows up as a reprint. I'm not sure about the mail-in scoring. Jack, can you speak to that by any chance?
To the mail-in scoring, I'm not sure either, honestly, but you're correct when vis-a-vis Skills 1.
Hi, it's Janelle. On the mail-in scoring, if you send in the answer sheet that has already been completed, you will get the new Strong profile with that, the updated Strong profile.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're going to emphasize later, but I guess I can't say it too many times, is that the Strong assessment instrument has not changed. Respondents are taking the same assessment. They're just getting different occupations. And I'll show you, what I'm going to do is walk you through a person where I have the results from 2004 and the results from 2012, so you can see exactly where the differences show up. But if you're doing mail-in scoring, then what you're getting back is a paper profile. If you're using a paper profile, you're not going to have the hyperlink activity that you have with online scoring, unless I miss something somewhere. Does that sound right, Jack?
Yes.
Jack's off finding the answer to the last question. Does that sound, did I cover it enough, Karen? And
yes,
is there anything?
I think so, yeah. There are a few other questions coming in, but I know that you're going to go over them, so I'm going to hold off on asking those right now.
Okay.
But I do have one from Sharad that she's saying, or she's asking, is there a way to figure out whether there is consistency in the interest indicated by a respondent and his or her actual interest? I mean, an individual might be inclined to respond as per his wish list rather than his actual interest or values.
Oh, absolutely. Was there more, or did I just get excited?
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. That's where the complexity of the scales comes into play. The kind of mantra that we say in certification programs is you can fake a GOT, you can fake a biz, you can probably even fake a PIZ, but you sure can't fake an OS. And what that means in English is that you can answer the GOTs and the BIZs according to your wish list. If you want to be a doctor, you'll recognize the questions that doctors might say like to. But what you can't fake is how doctors responded to all of the questions on the strong, which is where the similarity piece comes from on the occupational scales. So a flag pops up right away from the profile when the occupational coding, the occupational codes that are coming up, do not agree with the GOTs and the BIZs. And that's where you investigate it. And the script goes something like, when you answered the questions on the strong, you indicated a lot of interest in this field, but interestingly, you are not typical. You are not similar to typical workers in that occupation. So let's talk about what that might mean. You might make very unique contributions to the occupation. Maybe we could do some more research on the occupation and just confirm that it's really an interest of yours. But the one thing we can say is if you go into that occupation, you will be unique. You'll be different from typical people in that job. And one of the things about the strong that's so helpful is it gives us the clues to look for work environments where we find people like us, because that's what contributes the most to work satisfaction. Now what I did was just covered all of the interpretation nuances of the strong in 30 seconds. But I hope I've addressed the underlying concept of the question. Anything else, Karen?
Okay, so I'm trying to sort through them. Let's see, someone is asking, and we'll go over this too, but Holly's asking, will there be a supplement to the 2004 Strong Manual for the OSs? And actually, we'll go over at the end of the webinar a link where you can actually download the newer supplement. So we'll go over that at the end. But I just wanted to make note of that if anybody else has that question.
Sure. In fact, you can purchase a hard copy. I think it's around $16 or $16.50, or you can download it for free. Either way.
Right. Yeah, and we're offering it for free for all of our attendees today.
The download?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
Let's see here. Okay, here's another question from Mark. Mark is asking, are all of the OSs linked to the ONET outside the top 10?
No, the top 10 are the only ones that are linked. Correct, Janelle?
That's correct. When you get to ONET, you know, if your client is interested in the 11th occupation, you can simply type the name of that occupation in and search it. But it's just the top 10 list that's linked.
Sure, I'm actually going to demonstrate that too. You see, we only need a brief gateway, and we try to make it as unconfusing as possible. And what happens when you click on the top 10 is that you're taken to a cluster of occupations all related to the one that you clicked on. And I think if you click on 130 occupations, you wouldn't get the organization on the other end. And so, you know, I've participated in this choice, and I think sometimes less is more. Good question.
Okay, here's another. Can I ask another, or do you still have time for another?
Sure.
Okay, here's one from Linda, and this is one that I also think several people will be asking. She's asking what to do if someone has total agreement across the board and that occupation is disappearing.
Tell them. I mean, I think our job as career counselors is to show them that information. So you go into to ONET, and the employment projections come up nationally, state by state, and just point that out and say, let's talk about it. Just because an occupation is disappearing doesn't mean that the elements of the occupation are disappearing. It could be called something else. It could be an occupation that's being updated and revised. I mean, one of the occupations that that I have followed because I've been so involved with it over the past 10 years is web designer, for instance. That occupation has completely changed in 10 years, and it's still an occupation, but it's also something that has become so easy that people are just doing it themselves.
Thanks. Okay, another one is from Bob. Actually, I'll ask both of these questions. They're pretty much related. Bob says, Judy, when you say online scoring, will the PDFs received through Skills 1 contain the embedded hyperlink? And the other question was from Beth saying, Beth uses paper profiles. Can my clients access ONET from their own computers?
When you use Skills 1 and you get a PDF, that's all hyperlinked to ONET. So that's the one that's active. The paper ones, you're going to have to go to the ONET website and answer the occupational title, enter the occupational title and do a search. And I'm going to do that, so I'll show you how that works.
Great. And I think the rest will be coming up. So I'm making note of who's asked these questions, and at the end, if they haven't been answered, we'll go back to them. So I think we're ready to keep going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those are good questions. What I'm going to do is walk you through Charlie's actual profile and show you differences between 2012 and 2004. This is actually the cover page for a scoring that included the standard profile, the college profile pages, and the interpretive report. It's kind of the maximum of what you get. A little bit about Charlie. He was a pre-computer science major, and he knows he wants to work with computers, but he isn't sure what, he isn't sure where. He thinks maybe analyzing systems or developing software, or maybe something more hands-on. His particular college has an engineering technology major, and he's looking at that as well. So kind of keep that in mind as we look at the reports. Here's Charlie's general occupational theme graph from page 3 of the profile. Not very much has changed since 2004. Brighter colors for all the artistic folks out there. I think that really pops when a student sees that on their screen. There's a slightly different labeling of the score ranges on the graph over to the right. And I said this before, I'll probably say it 3 or 4 times, absolutely nothing has changed on the STRONG instrument itself. It's exactly the same assessment that your students and clients have been taking. There's no difference in the ways that scores are interpreted. The only change is in the occupational scales, the occupational listings themselves. You can see this from Charlie. This page is the same. Now his standard scores of 68 and 61 on realistic and investigative indicate very high and high interest in these theme areas compared to the general sample of employed men. And for those of you who are a little bit new to this, the standard scores, these scores over here, compare Charlie to employed men and women. These comments compare Charlie just to men. The basic interest scale, the basic interest scales page is essentially the same, except for the brighter colors. I can almost hear a sigh of relief from some of you who just completed the certification program yesterday. It's like, phew, we don't have to learn anything new except some job titles. It was really scary for people who were going through the program as everything changed. Here is where things do change. The top 10 occupations. Both Charlie's highest occupations and his lowest occupations are slightly different from 2004 to 2012. Just a reminder, Charlie only took the strong once. I just went back and scored his original administration so that we could get both the old and the new occupational norming. We wouldn't ordinarily be doing that. Most importantly, his occupational scales theme code hasn't changed. If you look at the letters after each of the titles, you're still seeing RIC coming up a lot. This is consistent with his GOT code from page 3. Now, from the PDF of his report that he now has on his desktop, he can link directly to his top 10 occupations and explore them. I'm going to show you how this works. And I'm going to pick Computer Systems Analyst. And when you click on Computer Systems Analyst on the profile, it takes you to ONET. And we can take this job title, and we see a description at the top. We see typical tasks of the job, various tools and technology required of the job, knowledge, skills, and abilities, we refer to those as the KSAs, required to do well on the job, work activities, typical work activities, work context. The job zone has to do with a classification that ONET uses based on training and education. Specific educational requirements. An interest code, work styles, work values, related occupations, wages and employment trends, both state and national. And if you select a state, let's select California, you can go right to that state. So this is all coming from one job title. And you can see how the job is described. I picked California on the California site. You can actually view a video of people doing the occupation. You can compare state and national wages, state and national employment trends, and then go back to the actual ONET page, which goes back to all of the national information. Now I'm going to close all of that out. We went, just to show you, we went directly there by clicking on Computer Systems Analyst. Now this is the ONET Computer Systems Analyst interest code. Notice that it's ICR, and on the strong the same job title is coded as RCI. ONET codes the work tasks that are required to do the job. The strong codes the personalities of the workers. The workers have taken the strong, and the strong occupational codes are how the workers actually came out on the general occupational themes. There's about a 70% overlap between the two. I actually like using both of these themes. It's pretty in-depth discussion about personalities versus the tasks that are on the job. But I want you to keep in mind that work environments are formed by the people who are in them, not by the work that is done. Holland's Riasek theory is a theory of personalities and work environments. It's not a theory of personalities and jobs. So if you have a data entry department where all of the workers are artistic, kind of shudder at that, you have an artistic work environment. And you can tell just by looking around at what they're wearing, what they have on their desks, their computer displays. Now, we're not saying this is a happy work environment, but if you have an artistic student who's looking for a job in data entry, you want to talk with them about work environments. Back to Charlie's profile for a minute. The occupational scales appear here just as they did on the 2004 report, except with the changes that we mentioned before. Note that if Charlie wants more information about any one of these occupations, all he has to do is click on the ONET link. The ONET link is over here, and enter the name of the occupation. And this is what you would do as well if you had a hard copy of his report. You would just take him to the ONET website, the onetonline.org. I'm going to enter engineer here. And when you enter engineer and do a search, you get all these occupations that are related to the original title that we searched for. And you can take it from there. If you click on any of these occupations, you'll come up with the same format in the ONET, on the ONET site that we looked at by linking directly from the report. The personal style scales on the 2012 version haven't changed at all. Remember, they're scored against the general representative sample. The only things that are changing are the scales that are scored against the occupations. Page 10 is the summary page for the profile. It's also the same, except for the changes in the occupational scales. And for those of us who are numbers people, the response summary also remains unchanged. Item responses are compared with the GRS. So again, not with occupational samples, so there are no changes. I did a screenshot here from my Skills 1 account. In most cases, excuse me, I have to clear my throat just for a second, I apologize. I hope that'll be better. In most cases, you won't be comparing 2004 and 2012 results for the same person. But if you do, if you go into your Skills 1 site, this is the online scoring site, if you go into your Skills 1 site, it'll come up as a reprint. And you just hit select, and it will come up with the 2012 occupations on it. I think the researchers, I think Janelle even smiles when we say this, but one of the changes in the 2012 revisions that is the most helpful to us as practitioners is that the reports are now numbered sequentially. So if you print a profile for a student and you add on the college profile pages, the numbering will go from page 10, the last page of the profile, to page 11, the first page of the college pages. College profile hasn't changed very much. It has added the theme code bar at the top, this bar up here. Serves as a visual reminder to students of the theme code that we're working from as college majors are presented for them. The occupations are now hyperlinked as they are on the standard profile. So once again, we can click on any of these hyperlinks, these links that show up in bright blue, and we go right to ONET again. So there are many places throughout the profile where the student can go back and forth. The personal styles page of the college profile now links to the college student worksheet. You can see the link down here. And this is a worksheet that students can download to use to compare different things on their report and to help them with their decision making about college majors. I've also added on here, just so you can see them, the interpretive report pages. And this picks up at page 15, again keeping it sequential if you've used all of them. The new strong interpretive report is also essentially unchanged, again except for the occupational scales and the top 10 occupations all linked to ONET again. Now, the new interpretive report also adds a link to the interest section of ONET, so you can explore occupations specifically by reset code. I've clicked on that link in the profile, and now we're right at the section of ONET that talks about realistic, investigative, artistic, etc. And if I click on realistic, which is the first letter in his code, all of these occupations come, all the realistic occupations in ONET come up. What I appreciate from this is just, I really miss being in the schools, is we start with 10 occupations and the whole world of work is there. We can move through it so easily and find out literally any information that we need. I'm going to pause after the next slide if anyone has questions that they're thinking about. Now, this is the interpretive report summary page. It's very much like the profile summary page, but with a little bit more expanded information. And these occupations, notice the bright blue, they're also hyperlinked. I wanted to stop here for a few minutes and talk about and address any questions about these standard reports for the Strong. And then we're going to look at iStartStrong, which is a whole different picture of how to evaluate strong results. Karen, what kinds of questions might be coming in so far?
Okay, let's see. We have one from Colin. Colin is asking, for a young professional just 2 years past his college graduation and still uncertain about his career direction, which version of the Strong would you recommend?
Yeah, we're probably talking about someone who is just out of college and a couple of years in. I'd probably use the standard profile and interpretive report. One of the things that we do with the interpretive report is pull out descriptions of occupations and specific work tasks, and we do some work around describing ideal work environments and job tasks that are the most appealing to us. So I think that's probably what I'd use. I'd probably combine it with the MBTI career report, but that's certainly a good point for the young professional to pause and consider whether they're moving, whether they're progressing in a path that's consistent with how they're responding to a standardized assessment.
Thanks. We have a few questions that are coming in from attendees that are asking if they can reprint a report. So they had already printed one a few months ago, and if they will be charged again for another report, so a reprint.
Jack?
No, if on Skills 1, the next to the little radio button, it says reprint, you will not be charged again. It's only if you upgrade it to a more robust report or a different report where you would be charged for generating a new report.
Yeah, I think if you had it originally scored for the college pages, for instance, the profile plus college, and now you want to add the interpretive, there'll be an additional charge for that.
Correct.
Okay, good, thank you.
Great, and then we're also getting a few attendees are very interested in the obviously the occupational changes, what was removed and what's different. And I also want to point out again that if you'd like more information on this, it will be in the supplement that we'll be providing for everyone to download. So there's a lot more information in there, just as an FYI for everybody. But I do have a question from Michelle. Michelle's asking, is it a valuable strategy to enter one's theme code from the Strong Interest Inventory into ONET to obtain additional career options since they code occupations differently?
No, I do. I do. In that initial exploration phase where you're trying to open everything up, I want to get the full list. So having the list of occupations based on personality similarity as well as the list based on work tasks can be very valuable. You want as many job titles as possible for the student to look at in the beginning, and there's going to be a great deal of overlap. I don't want anybody to think that it's such a dramatic difference that it's going to be too confusing. You're going to see the same codes showing up. They might be in a slightly different order, but they're going to show up. you know, I think one of the most interesting ones to me that I've always talked about with clients is that on the strong, artistic for decades has been coded, excuse me, attorney for decades has been coded as artistic, and now they've added S and E and R and E depending on the gender. And if you go into ONET, that occupation starts with enterprising. It's more enterprising conventional. And I think that's very telling, that what attorneys do is very different from the people who do them, who do the work. Attorneys tend to come out of liberal arts majors, political science majors in college, and they go to law school, and they keep their personality types, but they learn how to do enterprising conventional tasks, investigative tasks. And so you've got a personality doing tasks that are not specifically related to what motivates them the most. And that becomes a very interesting interpretation challenge when we're working with the strong. And it's very valuable. And it's why we don't pick up the strong and hand people 10 job titles and say, good luck with your life. It requires some talking through. It's why certification is important, so that you understand the nuances of a report that has this kind of depth. I hope that addressed the question. So the bottom line, yeah, I use both lists.
Thanks, Judy. And there's several questions about this as well. They are asking if, let's see here, if the combined MBTI and Strong report, career reports have these updates as well.
My understanding is that it's in the queue. That's next. This is the first level of this project, and that will be the second level. Maybe Janelle or Jack could talk to that with any other specific information.
It's Janelle. I would just mention that, yes, it is in the queue to update the Strong and MBTI career report. It is not yet updated, so if you generate that currently, today from Skills 1, you will get the existing Strong and MBTI career report, along with, if you chose to get a profile with it, you'll get the profile with it as well.
But I think, Janelle, we've done a lot of the work behind what's going to be released, haven't we?
Yes.
Seems to me I remember doing that.
Yes, you did.
And, yeah, so it's not too far in the future.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, so another question from Holly, sorry, is previously I have waited to give the results to students until the counseling session after taking the assessment. Do you recommend emailing the student their results before the counseling session or after the interpretation?
Well, actually, there's some ethical guidelines around this. The Strong is a restricted psychological assessment. It is not supposed to be given to respondents without an interpretation, so it would not be mailed ahead of time, would not be emailed ahead of time. The exception is iStartStrong, and we're going to look at that in just a minute.
Great. Let's see. We have another question from Gail. Gail is asking, why is the comparison gender-based?
I love that question. Men and women are still different. Men and women are still different. And if you go into a veterinarian clinic that's staffed by women and you go into a veterinarian clinic that's staffed by men, you're going to get a different personality in the environment. And this whole assessment is about matching personalities with environments. Believe me, I don't want them to be gender-based. CPP doesn't want them to be gender-based. Students, counselors, none of us want them to be gender-based. And as soon as the population samples, the general representative samples and the samples of workers show that men and women are the same, the Strong will make them the same. But the Strong's job is not to be politically correct. The Strong's job is to show the workforce the way it is. And so that's what's going on with those scales. And there are significant differences, believe me, especially in the themes and the basic interest scales.
Thanks. So another from Beth. Are there any changes to the concepts of the general occupational themes and their relationship to the two dimensions of data, abstract, and people thing that I learned many years ago?
No. No. That's still in the manual, and that research has remained consistent. And there are a lot of I've recently read some dissertations on that. So that research is still ongoing with people who are doing their doctorates on the Strong. And the hexagon shows up. That was with the same kind of breakdown that you're talking about. And that's how Holland initially designed it and published it. And the Strong has been loyal to Holland. Great questions.
Great, and I may have missed this one, but San Juanita is asking, do all occupation links offer a video on the Career Stop or on the ONET website?
I haven't checked them all. In fact, I was hoping to be able to demonstrate one of those videos today, and my media player and my PowerPoint decided to fight with each other. The videos are from the state links. So when you go to Computer Programmer, you get the whole national stuff from ONET. Then you click on Nebraska, and you get a description of computer programmers in Nebraska. That's where the videos are. And I think the state sites tap into a national site that collects the videos. They're pretty good. Usually what happens is a little screen opens up on top of ONET and shows a video. The video could be anywhere from 90 seconds to 4 minutes long. I've looked at probably 50 of them. I don't know. That would be a good test to go through every single occupation on the Strong and see if there's a video for each one.
Okay.
In my spare time, I'll do that.
Yeah. See, here is one from Joseph. So this is relating to the combined report that you were just speaking about. So if you do the combined MBTI and Strong with the profile, will they be different since the profile has been updated and the combined report has not?
Oh, wow. So you've purchased, let's say you purchased a package. Jack, are you there?
Yes,
okay, you purchased a package, because I know this is sold in several different ways, and your package includes the Strong administration and the combined report. The other way to purchase it is to purchase the combined report as one unit and the Strong profile as another unit. Now I know if you purchase them separately, the Strong profile unit will have the new occupational scales. What about if it's part of the package?
That's a good question, and it's something I want to verify, but my understanding is if it's purchased as a package, the first part of that package is the Strong college profile itself, and since that has been updated, my initial reaction is to say yes, that when purchased in a package, the new profile will reflect the changes to the occupational scales, and the combined piece later in the report when it synthesizes the information. That is what we are currently working on updating.
Yeah, and that can work very well because you're going to have a list of occupations from the Strong profile itself, and then you have the interpretive report that shows you overlap between similarity and occupations and MBTI occupations. I think they're going to work very well together for the most part. You'll have a few changes, on the profile. You might have a few occupations to add. Right. But I don't see any reason why that can't work.
It's Janelle. I wanted to add one thing, which is that the Strong and MBTI career report, the top 10 occupation list, remember it's also pulling in the MBTI data. And so you have occupations, some of the top 10 on the Strong will appear in that Strong and MBTI career report, but some will be new. They'll be brought in there because even though it wasn't in the top 10, it was high on the Strong, and it was also very closely related to the person's personality.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking it's not going to be too confusing to use it the way it is, because that top 10 list on the combined report is different anyway.
Exactly, and so it's very important we update the report, but that was, in terms of making choices, we thought that one is still very useful.
I agree. I agree. Karen, I think we probably ought to go on to iStart, unless you have something that's burning. We'll still have a few minutes at the end as well.
Yeah, no, that's okay. We can just save them for the end.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I know that the iStartStrong report for the Strong has been out for a while, but a lot of you haven't seen it. And I'm going to bring it up. This is what the front page looks like. Now, to get this report, respondents take the same Strong assessment that they take for any other Strong report. But this report is only scored for the general occupational themes and the basic interest scales. It's written in such a way that it can be downloaded directly to the student without an interpretation up front. So it seems to be working really well in academic advising centers and one-stop centers and other places where extended interpretation isn't possible, although it opens the door for the possibility of extended certification if you want it. Now, what's most interesting about this is that the student will get the basic report, but practitioners can have the results rescored for the occupational and personal style scales if they want more in-depth information. It was actually designed for visual appeal, trying to appeal more to the generation of students and young adults that are in college and in the workforce now. Easy access to more information, and we've also demonstrated that on the other reports now. And of course the interactivity, so students are constantly going back and forth from their report to other resources. And I'm showing you this for Charlie. He's the same person we've looked at before. Now the report begins with a description of Charlie's top 2 themes and how they fit together to describe work environments. So this is realistic and investigative, and it suggests you would probably like work environments where tangible products are developed and made. So see, the R comes first in that description, followed by I. Now respondents' top 2 themes will always be presented. Standard scores and the little, moderate, high, very high categories have been eliminated, so we don't have the possibility of flat, undifferentiated, and elevated profiles. That may be behind the scenes, but you have something specific to start talking with, because the 2 top ones are always highlighted, even if they're in the little category. Now it's up to the practitioner to decide if that additional information from the full report is necessary. In some cases it really is. In many cases it really isn't.
Hey Judy, did we lose you? Okay, sounds like we may have lost Judy for a second, so everybody please hold on tight. I'll give her a call.
I've got it.
Oh, there you are. Okay,
we're back.
Great.
Am I here now? No, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm sorry. My mouse slipped. My mouse slipped and hit a microphone.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Those little things.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So next comes a description of people that that have the themes that were described on the previous page, so that respondents are getting a picture of how people and work environments actually fit together. If respondents are viewing their reports online, each theme links immediately to more information. I'm going to click up here to realistic, because that's where I've got it linked. This takes it to a CPP platform that adds more information about the realistic category. They can actually click on any of the general occupational themes, any of the 6, and get this kind of information. Sorry about that, Karen.
No, no worries. You're fine.
After the top 2 themes are listed, the next page presents the other 4 themes listed in respondents' order, also with links so they can get information for any theme that they want. Now Charlie's top 5 specific interests are listed next. You recognize these as the basic interest scales. We've just used different language that's more user-friendly. Doesn't require a lot of understanding behind it. Now each specific interest begins with a description and typical work tasks. I have programming and information systems up here. It's one of the things that Charlie's considering. And after the description of work tasks, it links to more information about areas of study, career fields, related occupations, and activities. Each specific interest area, in this case programming and information systems, links to a full page like this. Now what I want you to see is that we're linking to more information now, not from the job title, but from the specific interest area, the basic interest scale. So you're going to get broader information. Now again, we're on a site now, this is on the CPP platform, that starts with the basic tasks up at the top, the job description itself, presents areas of studies. These are areas of studies, sample college majors, training programs, etc. Career fields that are related to computer programming, specific occupations, and activities. So we went from computer programming, which is a specific interest area, not an occupation, to this page, which broadens. I'm going to show you, I'm going to go back to computer programmer again. If I click on this link, this will take you back to ONET. Computer programmers on ONET. We'll take you through everything we've talked about before. You've seen this already. This is a lot of information. Specifically important is we started with a basic interest, we went to a job title, and now we've got all these related occupations at the bottom, which expands it even further. What this does that gets me so excited that, that I lose my voice is that it really underscores over and over and over again that a job title or one interest area doesn't limit you. The strong isn't telling you what to do or what to be. The strong is saying, let's start exploring with this information. And we can also get to the state information from this like we did before. So let me see, I want to look at computer programmers in Hawaii. Boy, would I love to go to Hawaii right now. We're having a blizzard in Lake Tahoe, an April blizzard. Okay, here it is in Hawaii. Career videos there again. National wages, state wages. Wages are okay there. Let's talk about that. Then we can close out of that again. We go back to the initial page. Back to realistic, which is where we started. And the top specific interest area of programming and information systems. And just to remind you, this is what appears on the report. When they click on this, the activities on their profile, the activities is actually hot. They get this page. And from this page, they can go to the occupations. Now, all of Charlie's top 5 specific interests are described the way that the one we just looked at was. We looked at programming, but all of them are described that way. And then the remaining 25 specific interests, the basic interest scales, are rank ordered for him to link to if he's interested in finding out more. Let's say he wants to maybe find out more about law. If he clicks on law, which is not in his top 5, this information comes up, again with the occupational links to ONET. At the end of the report, there's a brief summary page, which pulls everything together, and links to other online resources that most of us are used to using. The Occupational Outlook Handbook, this is the new OOH, by the way, really easier, much more user-friendly, easier to manipulate than last year's. The BLS website about majors and occupations, you can click on any major and it goes to occupations. And of course that summary page also links directly to the interest areas of ONET. So once again, he could enter realistic here and explore occupations that way. We're going to open it up for questions again. A couple of things I'd like to say about this report. I wrote it. Janelle and I have been intimately involved with it since we gave birth. I don't know who was the midwife or who was the mother here. And I've seen some really exciting stuff. I work closely with a community college in my town, and I've used it in career exploration classes for new students and for re-entry students. And I've talked to the counselors about it. And what the counselors like best is that they can start with this report, use it with a group, do a group interpretation. And if something isn't clarifying for a student, if they're not getting what they need in an individual session, the counselor then just goes to skill 1 and scores for the full profile. Then when the full profile comes up, it's right there, what's going on with the student. You can see that maybe even though their highest themes are listed as realistic and investigative, maybe most of their themes are low. Maybe they're not differentiated yet. You might look at the strong and see that even though the themes are high, the occupations where the personalities are measured aren't in the same categories. See, the occupational listing that comes up from the iStartStrong report comes from their interests. So Charlie's saying, I like programming, and what comes up on ONET are all of the occupations that involve programming. On the strong, he might say, on the full profile, it might say, I like programming, but what's going to come up is how similar he actually is to people who do programming and information systems work, who actually do the job title. So that information has been really helpful. I must admit the counselors in my college use the strong to death. I mean, they love it, and they use every little piece of it. So they're really getting the most out of it. But 3 or 4 times in the past year, they've invited me into classes where I've actually used this report with people who are completely new to it. Students ranging in age from high school juniors who are taking the community college career class all the way to 65, 70-year-old pre-retirees who are taking the class just for fun to explore careers at their time in life. And they love it. And what I do is I just put a PDF up on a screen in front. I have it on my laptop. I put it up on the screen. I walk them through reports. I click on a link and show them how to do it. They click on a link, and then they get together in little dyads or triads and talk about what came up on the link. And what's happening is that one student will click on a link like healthcare, which will be a specific interest, and another student in the group who might think she wants to be an elementary school teacher will say, wow, that thing on healthcare that you just clicked on looks interesting, and they start sharing information back and forth. And I did a 2-hour class, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and those students were engaged with me for 2 hours. Nobody got up and went to the restroom. Nobody started pulling out their iPhones and Blackberries and stuff and playing. They were totally engaged. And when they left, the teacher said, take what we've done here. You can take it home and you can click on those PDFs on your own computer. You've got them. And what your assignment for the next time is to come back with the 3 occupations that you've chosen to explore, and then we're going to figure out how to set up some information interviews, etc. So I think it's really exciting from both angles, the students' engagement in the beginning and what counselors are doing with it later. See, that teacher of that class who's a counselor can pull the students out of the class who didn't find any clarity or find any excitement. She can score that profile for the next level and get what she needs to explore what's going on under the surface. Now, CPP is always nice enough to let us try out these new reports. They've made that available again. It's available until May 11th. cpp.com/evaluations will take you to a site to try out the new reports. I also manage a LinkedIn group for strong interest inventory practitioners that's amazing. The best thing about that is that people post questions and other practitioners address them, and I just come in and referee once in a while. But I love it. I love it. I love to hear what's going on. If you want to be certified on the strong, we do those certification programs through GS, which is my company. That's gsconsultants.net. CPP is also making their usual offer for 10% off of purchases. This is, I have to give a caveat first. It does not apply to international purchases, and it doesn't apply to Skills 1 administrations and renewals, and it's not about Skills 1. It's about purchasing materials. CPP.com will get you there. There's also an online catalog. Make sure you use the Budget 12 offer code to get the 10%. And again, that's good until May 11th. International customers can get their best information at cpp.com/global sales. Now, Karen already said this, but I want to emphasize it along with putting that discount offer up again. For this webinar only, certificates of attendance will be mailed to those of you who have attended. Now, this is the manual supplement that we talked about. It can be downloaded for free from cpp.com/strong-update, or you can purchase it as a separate product. Good thing to use your 10% discount on if you want a hard copy. You can also use the discount on other Strong products. The green document here is the user's guide, which has been updated to go with the occupational scales updates. And Where Do I Go Next is the booklet that we give to respondents. In case you haven't met them, just to introduce you to Jim and Jack. I believe that Jack has been on through the program. These are the account representatives that work primarily with the education market. Jack has, you've heard his voice coming in every once in a while, answering those key questions about products and prices. And that's I'm kind of at the end of what I had planned to say, but we have time for some questions. I'd be happy to take them, and Janelle and Jack and Karen are also here too to answer questions. So throw them at us, Karen.
Great. Okay, they might be a little out of order because we got so many in, so I apologize for that ahead of time.
That's all right.
So we actually got a clarification regarding the videos on ONET from Virginia. So Virginia, it looks like they have already checked, and not all of the occupations have videos, so they've looked at that. And also, Bruce provided a clarification. Thank you. Videos are on the www.careeronestop.org website, which is where the ONET link goes to. So,
exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah,
I know who Bruce is.
Okay, awesome.
He knows that stuff.
Very helpful. Let's see here. So we have a question from Brian. So now that the Strong has been updated, how far back do we go to re-review with existing clients, or should we?
How far back do we go to I'm not sure I understand the question. There's a general rule of thumb that you want a Strong that's within the last 6 months that you're interpreting. Unlike the MBTI, where type is a genetic predisposition, interests are not genetic, and they change, and particularly with college students. And I'm hoping this is the answer to the question that's being asked, that if I don't have a recent Strong, I re-administer it. I don't just rescore it, I re-administer it.
Great.
I think, Karen, does that sound like the answer to the question?
I believe so, but Brian, if you'd like to send a clarification, please go ahead. Thank you. Okay, so here's one from Marcia. Marcia says, just curious, but has a mention of John Holland's RIASEC framework been added to the reports to provide a sense of background?
Could you repeat it? The mention of RIASEC.
So has a mention of John Holland's RIASEC framework been added to the reports to provide a sense of background?
For instance, including the hexagon and the theoretical description, do you think actually where the theory comes from?
I believe that's what it is. Yeah,
probably.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that discussion happened around the 2004 Strong, and Janelle, you might know about this, but whenever a Strong is revised, there are years of discussion and focus groups and information from users comes in that's evaluated and considered. And for the 2004 complete revision, it was pretty clear that the theoretical framework was not as important as those of us who are counselors thought it was. That the categories were enough, and that if the counselor wanted to bring in the theory and show the hexagon and everything, that they could do that independently. I'm one of those counselors who missed that. I like having the theoretical part in the instrument. But we've got generations of students now, and the instrument's being used a lot by HR departments and corporations where theory isn't what drives us. It's more bottom line information. So the way it stands now is that for this revision and the 2004 revision, we as practitioners have to add the theory part. But I know it's been tossed around a lot in the LinkedIn group the past couple of weeks, and Larry, who's the brand manager, is aware of that discussion, and it will probably continue until the next revision.
Great. Okay, another question is from Julie. Any research on how the strong interest inventory results relate to the LGBT population?
Yes. Actually, Mark Pope is the leader of that. And it has been published in several journals. The bottom line is that when a student or a respondent is responding to the strong, they respond according to the gender that they identify with, and it seems to work. And the male-female differences, identified male and female differences, show up with that particular population as they do with the population in general. But you can, if you do an academic research, an academic search on that, you'll find it.
Okay, thanks, Judy. Okay, so another one from Paula, and this.
Could I say something just in response to that? Mark's original research from 25 years ago was looking at the typicality index thing, where it shows whether the person is responding in a way that's typical of their gender. That's where identified gender differences showed up. But that's really interesting stuff. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just remembered that.
No, that's fine. So this question is, I'm used to the paper, and this went back a little bit, but I'm used to the paper form of these 3 reports. This is a way for me to guarantee that individuals come in for an interpretive appointment because self-interpretation can be misconstrued. How do you recommend using these hyperlinked occupations with the in-person interpretation?
Well, 2 things. If you're using the paper and you're not getting a PDF on your desktop or on the student's desktop, you just have to go to the ONET site, ONET online, and enter an occupational title and search from there. But when you have a strong scored on Skills 1, are we coming through? Okay, Karen?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. We're having a terrible storm here, and I think it's interfering with my server a little bit.
No, it's fine.
Okay. If you use Skills 1, if you use online scoring, and you're using the regular strong, the B-level strong, not iStart, it doesn't go to the student. It comes to you. So the student can't get their results until they come to you, unless you designate it otherwise, but you're not supposed to. So it works the same as the paper. What I would do is score it online, download the results, have the hard copy, and then, of course, provide the student with that, but also provide them with a PDF when they show up with the appointment.
Great. And just Linda wanted to verify what you had said earlier. So ONET looks at the code related to tasks, and the strong interest inventory looks at the code related to personality?
Right.
Okay, great. So just want to verify.
Those tasks were coded. The tasks originally were coded for the Holland publications right out of the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, and those KSAs and everything just went right over to ONET.
Great. Okay. Another question is Lenore. Do you find that too many choices overwhelm employees?
Employees, yeah, I do. And so that what I like is that the strong kind of acts, first of all, to open everything up, and then it acts as a funnel. Because you can take one basic interest scale or one occupation and open up the whole world, and then you go back to the results, or if you have the MBTI type as well, you can then focus all of the information. So absolutely, that's why in that class that I work with up at the college, it's really important that after I spend those 2 hours with those students, they have to decide on 3 that they're going to look at further. But you have to open up before you can narrow down. You can't narrow down first.
Okay, thank you. And actually, this was a question that I was curious about too. So for Janelle, Jackson, are any of you familiar with? Is there an ONET or Canadian version of ONET? Does anyone know that?
Yes. It's called the I'm sure there's some Canadians listening. NOC, National Occupational Classification System, NOC, NOC. If there's a Canadian listening that's in the certification program, check in with that information.
Okay, thank you.
And so, sorry, I butted in. Janelle, Jack may have some other information.
No, I was grateful for your answer.
Well, I think if Cheryl happens to be listening, who's my my lead trainer on the Strong, she trains in Canada a lot too, and she may remember the name of it and might chime in.
Great. It sounds like everyone's agreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Okay, so one from Victoria is a great question. Are there separate Strong instruments for students with learning disabilities or ADHD?
No, it's the same assessment, just interpreted differently.
Great. Let's see here. Okay, so another question here is from Bruce. I think it's a different Bruce. We have a couple on. If I just purchased a few $100s of paper administered Strong Skills Confidence instruments, will those be scored against the new updated standards?
Jack?
As far as I know, yes. Yes.
Yep.
And you know, once we sort of turned on the switch, everything is going to be scored to reflect the updates to the occupational scales. So since just because the students will still be taking the same Strong assessment, but the scales the occupational scales are just going to be scored differently. So in going forward, as you're mailing those in, they will have the updates.
Yeah, I didn't say that often enough, that nothing has changed except the occupations. And so students are taking the same Strong, and you send in the same paperwork.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so another question from Gary. Employment can be viewed as a job, career, or a calling. How does the Strong Interest Inventory handle these distinctions?
Oh, this is really really interesting. The distinction between career and life has kind of blurred over the past 30 years, and that's why this whole matching of person and job title is very secondary to what we talk about. The general occupational themes on the Strong tend to reflect the calling. It's who am I, and why is life or why is work important to me, what motivates me about life that I can express through my work. That's the calling piece. And if you're talking about a spiritual calling, you would build that into the interpretation. The basic interest scales are career fields, and when people select a basic interest scale or a specific interest on the iStart, that might represent a career path. And 1, 2, or 3 basic interest scales might blend together for a career path. Now the basic interest scales are coded the same way as the themes, so they are the career path representations of the calling themes. Then the occupations are just examples of jobs that represent the career paths and are related to the calling. There's a publication. My husband was a minister, and there's a publication that he used in his congregation called Life Keys, which talked about that. Great, great stuff. Jane Keyes and Sandra Hirsch.
Awesome. Okay, so here's another question from Lenore. And actually, these are going to be few related to the iStartStrong, so there's several of them that came in. So can iStartStrong be used for employees too, or is there a separate version?
Oh yes, of course it can be used for employees. I haven't. It's when you're working in an organizational setting and with your employees doing career development, the full Strong gives you more information. And usually you're dealing with employees who might be transitioning between departments or upgrading their skills or maybe need coaching in workplace behaviors and that kind of thing, you need the full strong for that. But if you're just using it to kind of introduce employees to what career exploration could be about for them, I think iStart could work really well. I'd like to hear from others, though. And because I'm not, well, actually I'm doing a live certification program in a month or so, and there'll be several corporate people there, and so I'll be hearing directly from them how we can use this in organizational settings.
Great.
And I'm just, Jack, in dealing with customer, well, you deal mostly with educational customers too. I'm just wondering if there's been any talk in the halls at CPP of how iStart might be used in organizations.
I think you addressed that very well. I think that what you said is very valid. I do really just handle education exclusively. So,
yeah.
But even within HR and 2- and 4-year schools, I could see where it would the iStart would have applications.
Or in non-educational settings, just in a
Exactly.
corporate setting. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so and just for clarification for everyone else too, Jill had asked, does the student take the same assessment for the iStartStrong? She says she likes the streamlined results.
Yes, the assessment is the same. They just get the streamlined results, and then you, the professional, decide whether you want more expanded information after you've gone through the streamlined results. Exactly.
Dina asked, why, let's see here, why does the iStartStrong not need debriefing? Or I guess interpretation.
Oh, what makes the strong, the regular strong, the B-level strong, a restricted assessment that requires interpretation is that it has so many scales that are normed against different populations. And the interpretation of the strong is all about bringing those scales together. It's looking at the patterns and exploring the why behind differences. Why does somebody who's social on the themes come up enterprising and conventional on the occupations? Now that takes it takes some training, it takes some experience to sort that out with a student, and that's the strength of that in-depth assessment. It's a psychological assessment and a report that reflects that. The iStart was the only scales that are included are normed against the general representative sample. So it's very easy. There are no numbers to misinterpret. It's very unlikely that you're going to have specific interests that are completely different from the themes. And so it was the way that we wrote it was so that the student could click on it and read it and not be confused. Now what does happen, and this happened a couple of weeks ago, was when I was in my classroom group, is that students will disagree with their results. Absolutely. Especially if they come into the interpretation program that they want to be X, and the report comes up C, just completely different, and that's where and I think that anybody who's using any product in the strong group, the strong suite of products, needs to be trained on the implications of students disagreeing with their results, respondents disagreeing with their results, scales not agreeing. You have to know where to go next. But just basically, it was designed to kind of act like the self-directed search acts, where you just kind of come up with a code and you do some research. It's the opening of the door to career exploration. I hope it works that way.
Thanks. And I have a few more questions to ask, but I just wanted to make 2 clarifications since we are getting several questions on both of these. But just to let everyone know again that these occupational updates, they have been available since April 16th. So many of you are asking if you can purchase, when you purchase your report, if you'll get that now. And yes, you will. Those will be included in any reports that you purchase now. The other question is for the discount that was mentioned, the 10%. Yes, you can also use that. Someone asked if we can use it on the combined career report or the iStartStrong, and definitely yes, you can use that 10% to try out those reports.
Wait, Karen, I need some clarification, because the 10% discount is on products but not on reports.
No, Judy, I think the wording on the screen says the 10% does not apply to Skills 1 purchases. And that's referring to the actual the site license agreement for Skills 1 itself. Not the reports that can be populated on there.
Oh my gosh, I've been giving out incorrect information then all year. So if you so you can order 1,000 reports on Skills 1 and get your 10% discount.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, that's all right. I think this is the first time that this has really come up. I think in previous webinars, I think the wording was such that it was a little less ambiguous. But I just did want to verify that.
Okay, that's why you're here, Jack. Thank you.
Absolutely, Judy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Marianne asked, do I need to be certified in Strong to use the iStartStrong report for my clients?
It's definitely recommended, but you do not have to be certified.
Great. Thank you. And so now a question related to, oh, I'm sorry, no, here's another one from Barbara. What are the disadvantages of just using iStartStrong instead of the traditional profile?
You lose the in-depth complexity. You lose the counseling. It's strictly career exploration. A very, from a little bit from a Myers-Briggs standpoint, iStartStrong was designed to be very sensing. It gives you, takes you to specific information. It wasn't designed to narrow down. It was designed to open up. The Strong, more intuitive. It's more about patterns. Opens the door to look at what the real career issues are that are going on with the student or the client. So, I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. I think it depends on the setting, the training of the person who's using it, why it's being used. I use iStart in career exploration, where we're introducing the concept of career exploration. We talk about Holland. We do the text. We do a little hexagon exercise and everything. Then we do that assessment, that report, and it works very well. But when I'm working with a 45-year-old, I don't use that report. I use the full report because I want to see what's behind the issues of their satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Since I wrote both, by the way, both reports, I can kind of choose.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see. And there's several questions about this as well. So Brooke asked, if the student completes the Strong Interest Inventory and gets the iStartStrong report, then the counselor wants to go back and look at the full Strong profile for the student. Is the school charged for both profiles?
Jack?
Yes, because in generating the iStartStrong, that is one report that you're generating. And moving to the more traditional profile or college profile, that is a different report. So there is a separate charge for that.
Of course, it's a whole new administration. It's I mean, same administration, but a whole new report.
Yes, the student you can generate any of the Strong reports from the student's responses to the initial assessment.
Okay.
But in moving between reports, you will be charged accordingly.
Gotcha. Okay, good. It won't show up as a reprint, in other words.
Exactly. And reprint is always a good sort of guideline when you're on Skills 1. If it says reprint, there's going to be no cost incurred. If it says new, then there is going to be a new charge.
Got it. Thank you. Gosh, you have a tough job, you guys, Jack and Jim, keeping all this straight.
I know. Neither of us, we both have preferences for intuition, too, but there's a lot of sensing that comes along with the position.
Very good. That's another instrument for those of you who are not MBTI people. Probably we just have a couple more minutes, Karen, if you have some summarizing comments or anything.
Yeah, actually, just one question. I'm hoping this will be quick. But Demona asked, does ONET allow for searches using multiple reset codes in combination?
Yes, yes. I didn't do that. I just clicked on reset for our friend Charlie. But yes, we could have entered his secondary code and his third code. And I know if Bruce is listening, he'll give you a better answer. That the Bruce that's in our discussion group on the Strong knows ONET so well and how to relate it to the instrument.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, everyone, unfortunately, we have run out of time, but I would like to thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to attend and for asking so many excellent questions. So I apologize we couldn't get to everyone's question, but please feel free to email us, email customer relations, or call us. I'd also like to thank Judy for sharing her knowledge and expertise with us today. So thank you so much, Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, Jim, and Janelle for being on the phone with us today as well and helping out with all these questions. So today's webinar is part of an ongoing series featuring Judy as our expert. This is the last webinar for the school year, and we will begin a new series in September. So please look for more information by visiting our website at www.cpp.com/askanexpert later this summer. We, just as a quick note, we also post all of our recorded webinars on that website, and we will be posting this recorded webinar there in approximately 2 weeks. So please look out for the certificate by mail and for an email from us regarding the recording. So thank you so much all for attending today, and have a wonderful day.